Hey guys, what's up? So today I'm going to be walking you through this piece I made based on the show Rilakkuma and Kaoru. So this show kind of came onto my radar through social media. I'm recording this a few weeks later after I already finished making the artwork, but as I recall, I was on Twitter one day and my feed was flooded with people talking about this show. They were mostly saying how this was a stop-motion cartoon that was geared towards adults. My first thought was this was probably going to be a bit racy, kind of like Deadpool, but with cutesy stuffed animals, so I thought I'd check it out and see what the hype was about. So this show is definitely not that, but I do understand what they meant. So for anyone who hasn't checked out the show, how do I explain it? It's kind of a slice of life type show about this young adult named Kaoru who lives in the city. And the show is more introspective and deals with her coming to terms with a lot of her feelings. Such as, the feeling that life is passing you by, or that everyone seems to be doing exciting things while she's just stuck. Or everyone's getting married, or knows what they want out of life, or accomplished more at this point than she has. And with that comes little lessons that basically boil down to it being okay to not know what you want yet, or to not have your life all figured out. And I think that's why it resonates with so many people. I know a lot of people that pop up on my feed are artists, and I think that makes it even more relatable because I know that as an artist myself, it's very easy to fall into the trap of I'm not good enough, or why haven't I done XYZ yet? Even now that I've been teaching art for a few years, I see the same doubts in others that I've seen in both myself and in former classmates. So it's nice to see a show that isn't afraid to double down on exploring that mentality while offering some reassurance. The stories themselves aren't super exciting or anything, and they don't necessarily have particularly high stakes to them. But if the message behind these episodes doesn't really resonate with you, I think you can at least appreciate it for its beauty. The show's very charming. The animation, it's gorgeous, and honestly, the set design and their attention to detail, it's insane. There's even a few moments where their use of cinematography is just so good that it makes me forget it's even stop motion at all. So yeah, I recommend the show. It's probably not for everyone, but I suspect there's a lot of people out there that probably feel a lot like the main character, and they might get something out of it. So now onto the piece. I noticed a lot of the fan art I've seen seems to have her in the outfit from the first episode. So I decided I wanted to use the outfit she wore in the last episode to make it stand out a bit, I guess. So what I wanted to do with it was I wanted to focus on a small moment. And I wanted to have this feeling that it was something nostalgic. I think I was inspired by this scene in the last episode of the season where they're all looking through a photo album and it's just an accumulation of all these moments that occurred over the course of the season. So to get this nostalgic feeling, I wanted to play with a lot of these warm colors. Some browns, some reds, some oranges, a few pinks. I really wanted to push that and really get it to feel warm and cozy, you know? So a lot of that will come into effect at the very end when I'm tweaking the colors and using gradient maps. So now I'm just starting to ink the trees. And this is just before I realize I made a big mistake in this piece. So yeah, I realized that I messed up the perspective. So it's weird. Normally my perspective's a little more complex than this, and this time it's pretty straightforward and I still managed to mess it up. But anyways, I'm rethinking the perspective, shifting things around. First I scaled up Rilakkuma and the others, so I could put them on the same plane and figure out what their relation to the background is. And then I'm just adjusting everything properly and then shoving them back again. So it's pretty much sorted out after, and we're back on track. So now it's just coloring. So now I'm basically just experimenting, playing around, trying a few different techniques. I was going for a bit more of a graphic feel, which I lose a bit towards the end, but in the last stages I bring it back. Yeah, I had this idea of making the white washing everything out, so I did that overexposed look a bit with the characters, and I will at the end put a bit of that back into the piece, but for now it's gonna be gone for a little bit. So I'm just adding basic shadows, going for somewhat of a sunset type feel, again bringing those warm colors back in, and now I'm just adding details in the shadows, adding some cast shadows on the ground, starting to throw the highlights into the trees, some of the shadows into the darker tones of the trees. And I'm just starting to play with the framing of the piece. I'm considering a few different approaches, such as like a postcard look or watercolor painting. Basically, I'm just experimenting until I find something I like. And now in a moment, I'm going to start adding some trees into the far background, so it doesn't just look like an empty park. I'll blur it out a little bit, add some depth of field. Okay, so now I'm going to be adding a bit of texture and then slightly adjusting the tones everywhere. I'm adding a bit of subsurface scattering next to the sharp highlights, adding some variation into the grass. Now I'm adding some cool colors into the shadows, so it feels just a bit too orangey and too warm now. So I'm just throwing a bit of cool colors just to balance it out a bit. And I'm going to be adding some subtle hue changes into the background to add a bit more variance and to pop out the characters a little bit from the background. And now I'm changing her sweater up a little bit because it's a bit too hard to see, it's a bit too dark. I'm just adding a bit more variation, and now it's pretty much just going to be color correction. And there's a final piece. So it was just trying to get the mood just right, how I wanted it. And here it is. I hope you guys like it. So this is what the final piece turned out like. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Now, I've got a quick preview for the next video that's gonna come out soon, so stay tuned.